the Gettysburg Address that goes together with Memorial Day weekend. So I invite you to pay attention as Craig Stark will recite it and present it to us. And then I'll share just a few markers of why the Gettysburg Address is so treasurable, has such a great value to me, and I invite you to reflect of why it may be important to you too. The lasting legacy of the Gettysburg Address.
7 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this, but in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here have consecrated it far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from those honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they here gave the last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, and that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from the earth.
That 217 words compared to a 2-hour speech of the orator that preceded Abraham Lincoln. Let me see if I have my remarks here. Why does it matter? One piece that truly matters to me is that it was about the union, about our togetherness. How can we, as the United States of America, as one congregation, as one community, live in unity? And there is a parallel to our church, the United Church of Christ. How do we live in a union, in relationships, in partnerships? How does that work? And one motto, one principle of the United Church of Christ is, in essentials, unity. In non-essentials, diversity. In all, charity, or respect, or whatever other word you may include there. The second piece is that the unity does not just happen. It does not just happen. And we have had fathers and mothers and founders and people who invested their lives to maintain and to uplift, to hold together what belongs together. And many of them gave their lives for that. So there is an ultimate sacrifice in that. Is the common good at the center of who we are? Do we look out for each other? Are we in this together? Or is it, well, first me, first you, where we're all divided up in our own corners and do not look out for the common good? So that is one of the pieces that matters to me too. And then the beautiful thing is that Abraham Lincoln says in this Gettysburg Address is, we cannot make this sacred, that battle, but those who did sacrifice, those who did give their lives, those who offered the ultimate sacrifice, they already did it. And our role, our calling is to follow in their footsteps. They already did it. And we are to participate in completing that work, in keeping it and moving it forward. So how do we do that? Well, it's a constant commitment to reach across, to look at the other person, to work for the common good. That's what we do. And one thing, it's not 100% sure whether that was in the original Gettysburg Address, and we remember it also from the Pledge of Allegiance, that it's one nation under God. And this God is so much greater than what we can grasp. And someone asked Lincoln, Abraham Lincoln, the president, how do you understand God? And the question he answered is not so much to think about whether God is on our side or on my side. The question is more like, am I on God's side? You see the difference? The difference is where I come first and God legitimizes my purposes, my self-interest, and pushing forward on that. Or the opposite would be, am I willing to question myself, my self-interest, and live with those questions and reach beyond and reaching out to others who broaden my horizon, with whom I'm called to live together. The union is never complete. It's always a challenge, always an invitation for us to work toward, to follow in the footsteps of the soldiers from the Gettysburg battlefield and all those mothers and fathers who dedicated their lives to the Union. Will you do that together with me? We're called to it. Thank you.